Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, learner!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite thanks to TriBooth. Don't forget the code TRIPAP200 to get $200 off your TriBooth and Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Just imagine a New Zealander, an American, a Canadian, an Australian, and a half Englishman walk into a podcast. It's just happened. We have, apart from Robert Marshall, we have Rebecca Wilson, we have Ross, and we have Vincent from Source Elements. Ooh, here we are.
Wonderful.
Yeah. An Argentine, too.
Can you tell from our laughter who is who?
Oh, yeah. And welcome to the party in Las Vegas by the sounds of it.
Now, we should say the award-winning team.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a bit of a party going on because there's a new trophy in the cupboard by the sounds of things.
There is. Best in show.
We're holding it up right now. It's brilliant, shining blue, and it says NAB Best in Show. And it's going to go in Robert's trophy case.
Exactly.
Nice.
I don't have a trophy case, but I have a trophy shelf.
Trophy shelf, yeah.
So fill us in. Best in Show for?
Remote
Collaboration. Remote production.
Remote production, yes.
This is the new baby, Source Connect 4, yeah?
Yes.
So nice.
It does Atmos, amongst other many cool things that Source Connect used to do and more that it does now.
So go on, fill us in on the Atmos thing, because that's a massive leap forward.
Yeah, it's allows you to have all sort of the raw Atmos stream, so not just a rendered mix going across a remote connection so someone can listen, but instead it gives you the flexibility to send what's called the bed, then all the objects. These are all separate audio channels, as many as it will be as many as 128. And then and the time code, and then most importantly, the metadata that steers all these objects around so that whatever the receiver has, as Atmos does, is it just conforms it renders it specifically for their speaker setup. So you could have a stage mixing a film with, say, 20 speakers, and a director reviewing that mix in real time over Source Connect with, say, 12 speakers or even 10 speakers. And maybe another person's connected at the same time, and they just have headphones, so they're getting it as binaural.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the thinking out of the equation, right? You just let the renderer on the remote side deal with the translation. So it just lets the host or the mix host, if you will, put one stream up and have it divvy out to everyone accordingly.
So everybody's end basically decides what it wants to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, they'll hear the same thing. They'll just experience it in spatialization differently.
Yeah.
Right. It'll be optimized for their speaker setup because it'll be coming out of a renderer directly on their side.
And the spatialization would be compatible from what you hear in binaural or 5.1 is what someone's hearing in 9.1.6, but just with at least detail.
Yeah. I guess the end goal is sort of like listening parity, which is almost impossible to achieve because everyone's going to have different speakers and configurations, but this is the most optimized version to get closest to that.
It's not like we're dropping one of the voice channels so you only hear one side of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's the purpose that Atmos was made for, so that there'd be one deliverable, and then whatever your speaker setup, the person with the really nice speaker setup doesn't have to compromise for the person with the really simple speaker setup.
And the other way around.
And the other way around. The person with the simple setup is not sort of burdened in a sense by having something that they can't play because of someone who has a really fancy system. So Atmos is like a deliverable that lets you play back anything from stereo all the way up to huge speakers arrays, and 15 and 20 speakers even at home, I think.
So,
I have kind of an alternate kind of take on this, which is basically like a bit of a tangent from that angle of it, but it's basically like these getting into a really tuned listening environment is a really expensive moment. You only get so many hours in there, and the ability that now you could be working on a laptop in headphones through the Dolby Atmos renderer and building a mix towards your big mix session where you're going to actually sit in that room. That's kind of like what I think is at stake. And what's really exciting about this is you could be working on 5.1 before, when you were working like in a stereo setting, is you weren't able to know that it was going to translate exactly. This is kind of
or even at all.
Yeah, you would kind of use tools like I had the waves thing that lets you take 5.1 and it'd make it binaural, and you'd kind of have an idea.
I think most engineers I know would say they do their best work when like the client leaves and they get to work on something by themselves in a bit. So now the ability that you could be working towards this grand, big spatial mix in a laptop setting, and then transmit that to a listening environment that you can get into or physically get there. That's the real exciting prospect.
It kind of feels like equity, really, like true equity.
Let's bring it back into more of the realm of our listeners, I guess. And AP and I have been having a bit of a play around with Source Connect 4. Thanks very much to you guys. And the biggest step forward I see is, firstly, the GUI. You know, it looks so much more slick, so much more professional, so much more user-friendly. But in terms of operation-wise, the biggest step forward is the old queue manager, which now becomes restore, replace in Source Connect 4. We
were like, we've spent 20 years honing technology, and then we thought now we need to hone the user experience. It's really an internal focus for all of us now.
The queue manager so often was just... people never read the manual. It didn't work automatically enough. And then people would just go, what is this thing? I don't know. Shut it down. Let's get on with our session. It wasn't something that they thought to ask for because they never had anything like it before.
It's weird. I've done so many sessions where I've said, are you using Queue Manager? And I get the answer, no. What's that?
Yeah.
We just have one extra step to go, which is to be reading your session file automatically, your Pro Tools or Logic or other session file, whatever we can. And then you honestly wouldn't have to do anything, and you've got restore happening all the time without needing to configure anything.
For me, the other awesome one would be for it to work even after I've shut down Source Connect, because there's so many times that you shut it down and you go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, should I? But
we have reconnection logic built in now, or like a new method where if somebody does shut down, you still got work to do, you can bring it back up and it'll reconnect and it'll restart. But we also, if you shut the program down, then it can't do it anymore. It's the same.
But as far as like uploading the data, maybe ahead of time or right away, so you don't have to wait for the talent to, or worry if the talent shuts their system down.
This is maybe the most important thing about Source Connect 4. We've redesigned it from scratch, completely rewritten every line of code, so that we can add these features that we know everybody wants. So the plan was the very first version on the first day, it's pretty much feature to feature with Source Connect 3, because we just need to get it out, right? A few others, but with Dolby.
Yep. And the connection.
Okay. All right. Some more extra cool stuff.
There's a lot of cool
stuff. To get you to want to upgrade. But then what you're talking about, like, hey, let's upload, the whole session to the cloud so that the engineer can get it later on. All of that stuff can come now because we've built hooks into all of this technology.
Sure. Well, let's pick through a few of them. AP and I were talking. We were looking at the at that restore replace page. AP noted the recorded files area and was wondering if that was sort of a hybrid of the old Source Connect now, where you could actually record directly to the cloud. Is that the case, or is that actually looking at my in my case, my Pro Tools folder, going, these are the files you've recorded so far?
Exactly. Those are the files that you've recorded in Pro Tools. What I would originally say the queue manager or the auto restore, auto replace system recognizes as ones that it knows what they are and who they were connected to, and if there's any audio to fix or replace, restore or replace, that it can do it.
Yeah.
So those are your recorded files. And then the other one you might see in there is the uploads, which are files that maybe someone else recorded that you are uploading data to either restore someone else's file or replace data in someone else's file.
Okay. Because I think, AP, you sort of liked the idea of recording in the cloud, didn't you?
Yeah, and that's one of those features
in the cloud. Yeah.
You're technically recording there, and we can make that recording more available. It's actually I think Source Connect 3 had that, but it had some flaws to it. But exporting the connection, if it's not there already, will be there.
AP's been playing with Twisted Wave too much. That's the problem.
I've been playing, yeah, indeed. Just going to ask about port forwarding. How does that change, or has it changed in Source Connect 4?
I got this one.
Okay.
How does that change? No more port forwarding is necessary.
Yeah, nice.
Basically,
Excellent.
we
We'd like to
find
hear
a
that.
way. We find a way through your connection path and make it work. You don't have to go into your router and figure out anything complicated. You don't have to call us in a panic because you decided to take a vacation and then you get called for a job. But nothing like that. It's just gonna work.
Yeah, so Source Stream is available
Perfect.
Mac and Windows, and port forwarding, especially in the Pro version, is available if you want to use it. It does it's the ideal path for the connection if it's available, and if you can lay out the red carpet for Source Connect, it appreciates it, but it's no longer required.
Only very strict networks and,
Exactly.
corporate environments.
Yeah.
Like,
My question is directed at you, Rebecca, and I'm wondering what hand COVID played in the development of Source Connect 4, the one we're seeing now.
It's still a complicated thing to process what happened to the world in 2020. We all changed. It was a major cultural shift for us as humans. And so, of course, that can only be reflected in technology. And the main thing that changed, I would say, for us is that we realized we kind of know what we're doing with the internet, which was really nice to find out. It was really, it wasn't a pleasant situation at all, but it was nice to know that we were able to help. That was really satisfying. If you could have called anything in that situation satisfying. And then it said to us, hey, I think that we have an idea what's going to be needed the next 10, 20 years, because we've already been doing it 20 years. Robert and I, the team, we're all young spring chickens, and
and I have a cane.
Still got some ideas.
left. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe just a certain insight that we have from doing this so long. It was like, now the world's ready for us.
I think what happened in the pandemic is all the doubters went, oh, remote really does work. And for us, what we realize is that remote is no longer just like the talent's remote or the client's remote, but remote is everybody's remote.
Yeah.
And they all have different roles. Mm-hmm. And how to put those roles together in the most cohesive way became more what Source Connect 4 was about compared to what we thought Source Connect 4 was going to be prior to the pandemic.
If you think about Source Connect, like Source Connect was pre-COVID, was something that was nice to have. And then when COVID hit, it was something you had to have. And that changed the whole game, I thought.
Well, Andrew, honestly, you and I, we're from the South Pacific, from Australasia. I wouldn't say that Source Connect was a nice to have. It was kind of whether it was Source Connect or something else, we had to have something, or how on earth were we going to work internationally, because plane tickets are expensive and,
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But I'm thinking from my point of view, like as a voice talent working with studios, like historically, you just drive in. I'd go to Melbourne or Sydney, wherever it was, for a job, and you manage to convince people that you can actually connect to my studio if I work with someone in Sydney or wherever. But it was kind of a luxury, really, and people would just use local talent.
Right.
That could pull up in their car park and go into their booth. But once COVID hit, it was not like that at all. It was a different game.
I think especially here in Australia, there was a massive resistance to home studios, to the point where owners of studios would refuse to work with remote voice actors because they figured they were trying to steal their work. So, but COVID sort of put a whole new perspective on that, I guess, really, didn't it?
Yeah, and there were people that were actually literally coming out and black banning talent for having a home setup.
Yeah, that guy's got a home studio. He's stealing my work.
Prior to the pandemic, or did that subside at some point?
Yeah, I think it was. Look, it was softening, but it was still there.
I think what the pandemic did is kind of shift the focus from the studio to the operator. to the engineers at those studios, right? So I definitely spoke to a lot of people in those places that said they got more work because they were able to do so much of it remotely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that's a fact for a lot of studios where they were able to like have engineers at home and at the studios, or just because clients weren't in, they were able to do just more work. Like,
yeah,
everybody could be put to work. All you needed was more licenses of whatever it was that you were using, like
Source Connect,
Pro Tools and Source Connect and whatnot.
Yeah. The irony of this whole thing, when COVID hit, all of a sudden studios were calling me because they had to get out of their commercial studios and set up at home, and asking if I could do tests with them to make sure their Source Connect was working.
Wow.
Right. Or weren't some talent going to your place just to do sessions because they were, they couldn't go all the way to the studio, but somehow they could give you COVID.
Exactly.
I don't know how the rules were, but I seem to remember you were hosting some talent at your place.
Yeah, there was a few that came here because they got out of the city and they were living sort of coastal, so they couldn't get in there anyway. And I was asked if people could come here that were living locally, and of course I obliged.
The amount of tech that was pushed on to pretty much every operator in a remote setting is I think probably one of the humbling parts of the pandemic, right? Because it was once you have every role get remote, then all of a sudden, like I know a lot of audio engineers that know nothing about networks.
Yeah.
It's like literally everyone is kind of thrown this wrench of technology and different roles. Now I got to be IT as well as engineering.
Well, that's what support was here for.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, like, literally a big part of like Source Connect helping in pandemic was just a huge, heavy load of tech support. And it wasn't just getting talent onboarded, but it was almost teaching a lot of people like how to work remotely, or how to like not just do a remote ISDN, like to freaking have everybody be remote and
lots of templates,
and deal with picture,
lot of routing.
Yes.
So all of that's kind of I think that's what's Source Connect 4 represents I think a lot of the learning of that is how to streamline exist, make the UI make sense for you, so you don't really need to think too much. The getting rid of the iLock and the port forwarding requirements. I don't know if we talked about iLock, but that's the thing. Like we've experienced that probably in huge volumes right at the start of the pandemic.
What's this? What is this iLock thing?
Oh, I need something physical, and I can go out and get it.
And you didn't need it physical at the time, but it was just another account. Is it going to cost me anything? No, it's a free account. And, you can't verify, or you can't easily set somebody up because there's just more email verifications for new accounts that are created. And God forbid the account that you created in Source Elements, that same account name is not available in iLock. So now you have two different account names to remember and like
two different passwords. And and people were losing their passwords because they used one thing for one account, one thing for another account.
So that's gone.
No more iLock. Wow.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here, folks. That's right, exactly.
Breaking news.
Robbo did say that he would like the UI to be bigger.
Bigger?
Yeah,
smaller.
You can't see shit.
Smaller.
The GUI.
Oh, smaller?
The GUI. It would be nice to be able to scale it. I want to see, I love the size of it as it is for now. But even when you've hit that little four-corner box and it squashes down to the sort of send and receive meters and then the menu underneath, for me, it still takes up a lot of space on my screen. And
you can make it smaller.
Yeah, you can.
Grab the corner and push it in.
We're in the final mile of quality of life improvements. A lot of the stuff that, those sort of smaller bits are just, they're going to get done in the next couple months.
Yeah, I think, and absolutely. I mean, you've embarked on a massive job, but that was one of the observations that I did say to Robert is I want to see it big when I'm setting up the session and when I'm getting everybody connected. But once everybody's connected, I've got 3 screens in front of me. I've got my edit on one, my mix on another, and then my third is dedicated to picture for video, Source Connect, plugins, meters, all the rest of it to keep them out of the way. So the less space that can take up for me, because I really only need to glance up and see if it's metering if someone says they can't hear something.
Can I throw in a future feature that I don't think is a spoiler because I really want it?
Yep.
We plan to separate the UI from the engine. And you could run it from like another screen or an iPad. And to me, that's the sweet spot there, especially for, people who are running, big installations. They can walk away and, get a call, oh, Source Connect 5 is not working. And they can look on their phone. Oh, yeah, oh, it's working now.
Right.
Why should they have to go back to the machine room?
And what about integration with Nexus?
I think you're going to definitely see Nexus and Source Connect integration and just further integration across the whole product line.
Yeah.
Going towards that platform.
I think because I was telling Robert on a previous episode, it wasn't all that long ago, I had a session where I had a voice talent up in Brisbane somewhere. I had a creative sitting in the airport and 2 guys in the agency here in Sydney. And then the client was also online from like Perth in Western Australia or something like that. And there was another talent in Adelaide. And it was just this massive session. And if you could have seen my poor old Thirst screen with meters and everything else going and all the rest of it, it becomes a logistical nightmare trying to remember where you've put everything and who's on what. So combining that all together would be quite impressive.
Can't say exactly what you might see, but I think Source Connect and Nexus are surely
more
made
communication.
to work with each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a really good advancement that you've reminded me that you've put into fore here is the fact that all your connections appear in the one place. I think that's amazing in itself.
And they cross connect for you.
Yeah.
So they all hear each other without you having to do a thing.
Right.
You can pull multiple outputs. Everyone on a separate track.
And you can even give them different inputs.
Yeah.
Right. You can send them different things, but they will all send to each other.
Yeah.
Can I make it so that person doesn't send to that person?
That's the plan for sure.
Yeah.
We want to have a more project-based style where you could decide, what role is everyone playing? What do they hear? What do you hear?
What do you want them to hear? Yeah. Who hears what? You can make everyone hear each other in a round circle, and you could really play the game of like, tell this story to the next person, and when it gets back to you, be like, that is not the story I told.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way you've set it up now, it's almost a well and truly upsized Source Connect now, right?
I'd agree. In a simple sense, it is like Source Connect 3 and Source Connect Now sort of merging together and getting each one giving the best of what they used to do, so you get the benefits.
Yeah, the auto restore replace being like now you actually truly have an acquisition system that's like bit accurate, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Never mind the browser, you're not going to get that there. So
we know where every sample and frame is. Speaking of frames.
Yeah.
We have a system called the Remote Overdub Sync, which instead of Remote Transport Sync, where you are to deal with latency on a project if someone is singing or doing ADR, going back to ISDN, the original method is to send time code into sync to timelines on either side. So one chases the other. And that works, but there's a lot of setup on either side. So the remote overdub sync idea is that you can send to the talent whatever they need to hear and whatever they need to see, and they perform if it's ADR, and they sing, and that performance gets back to you and you record it. And while you're recording it using the remote overdub sync system, you hear it in sync. And when you hit stop in your DAW, you see the waveform, and then a moment later, a couple of seconds later, you see that waveform jump back in time to be where it should have been had there been no latency between you. So you can overdub, really just connect and overdub. You don't have to tell people to load up this timeline and click this button to synchronize. And
no more comments of that doesn't look right to me from the back of the room when you're recording with the talent.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Are you thinking, or is it going to happen for iOS by any chance?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm a big iPad fan. I really love mine. I actually use it mostly as a music score player to play the piano. Mm-hmm. And but I would love to use Source Connect on it, and it's definitely happening.
AP's only asking you because he's trying to create the world's smallest voiceover road kit. It's a purely selfish motivation.
I get it. He just needs to use a TRRS cable. and like, if Andrew just needs to talk to me about how to make things, is like,
Absolutely, you would have the world's smallest road case, indeed.
That's not the only thing that I've got the smallest of, but that's another story for another day. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Vincent, and of course, Robert.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Robbo.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite with thanks to TriBooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.